Okay, so the USS Gerald R. Ford, that's America's newest, most advanced aircraft carrier. It just steamed into the Mediterranean. Now look, ships move around all the time, right? But this is different. This is a major move, a real high-stakes play on the global stage. So let's get into it and break down exactly why.
I mean, why all the fuss? At first glance, it's just one ship. But trust me, this is anything but a routine trip. A better way to think about it is like a grandmaster placing a queen on a chessboard. It's a single move, yeah, but it completely changes the entire game. So the big question is, what makes this journey, right now, so incredibly important?
All right, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at a mysterious spy plane that started this whole thing. Then, we'll decode what the military calls the overwatch. After that, we'll connect the dots to the crisis with Iran. We'll also get into what a carrier's real power is. And finally, I'll give you a checklist of what to watch for as this unfolds.
Okay, so our story actually kicks off not with the carrier, but with something weird happening in the sky. And it's happening right over one of the most critical maritime choke points on the planet, the Strait of Gibraltar. So back on February 20th, folks who watch open source flight trackers, the public ones, they saw something odd. A US Navy P-8 Poseidon, which is basically a high-tech spy plane, wasn't just on a normal patrol. No, it was flying these tight, repetitive circles right over the strait, kind of like a guard dog pacing back and forth in front of a gate. This was no accident. It was the very first public clue that something big was about to pass through. In that strange flight path, that P-8 flying in circles, well, that's a textbook example of a military concept known as overwatch. You can think of it as this complex, invisible shield that gets thrown up around something as ridiculously valuable as the USS Ford.
So, what exactly is overwatch? Well, to put it simply, it's all about knowing everything that's going on around the carrier, in the air, on the surface of the water, and even under the water. It's about building these layers of defense to find and deal with any potential threat way before it can ever become a real danger. It's all about security through, well, total information awareness.
And this protection isn't just one thing, it's all about layers. Let's break it down. First, you've got the wide area picture. That's planes like the P-8 we saw, plus satellites, just mapping out everything for hundreds of miles. Next up is the air and missile umbrella. That's the carrier's escort ships, the destroyers and cruisers, creating this protective bubble. Then, especially in a tight spot like Gibraltar, you have undersea management. They are laser-focused on listening for quiet threats, like enemy submarines. And finally, you've got the close-in protection. This is the really tough job of sifting through all the dense commercial boat traffic to spot anything that looks off. Put it all together, and you have this incredible 360-degree multi-layered shield.
So you might be asking, why go to all this trouble? I mean, this is a massive effort. And the answer is, this is absolutely not a drill. The Ford's arrival in the region is directly linked to the escalating tensions with Iran. Yeah, this move isn't happening in a vacuum. It's actually part of a much bigger and pretty rapid buildup of U.S. military power in the area. And it's all happening as these nuclear negotiations with Iran are hitting a really critical, tense point. The Ford is essentially being sent in to beef up the forces already there, adding some serious military muscle to the U.S. position. And this is where things get really serious. U.S. Central Command, CENTCOM, has been publicly warning about escalatory behavior at sea. And that's a big deal, because historically, these kinds of incidents in crowded waters, think the Strait of Hormuz, are a classic way for a wider conflict to just erupt. So the Ford is sailing right into that super tense environment, and it's there to do two things: act as a major deterrent and be a powerful option if things go wrong. Okay, so what does bringing in a beast like the USS Ford actually change on the ground? Well, it's so much more than just a floating airport. It's a really flexible tool of national power. But it's super important to be clear about what a carrier adds to the mix and what it doesn't. On one hand, yes, it dramatically increases the number of air missions or sorties that can fly every single day. It gives you redundancy and resilience, which makes it a nightmare for an adversary to plan against. And just its presence, that sends a hugely powerful diplomatic signal. But let's be real, it's not a silver bullet. Its arrival doesn't automatically mean a strike is about to happen. It for sure doesn't make the operation risk-free, and it's not going to solve the entire crisis by itself. What it does is create options. And let's talk about those specific options it brings to the table. For one, it can create a more persistent air defense and surveillance shield for our partners in the region. That's a huge deal for them.
It also lets commanders juggle multiple missions at once, like protecting commercial shipping, keeping potential targets at risk, and maintaining non-stop intelligence coverage. But maybe most importantly, it gives the top leadership a wider menu of choices for controlling escalation, ways to respond forcefully that are still short of launching a major strike.
All right, so the fort is in the Mediterranean. Now what? Well, the coolest part is you don't need some kind of top secret clearance to keep tabs on this. Using what's called open source intelligence, or OSINT, there are some really specific clues that all of us can look for. First up, how do we know when it's getting into position or on station? Well, you can watch its speed and its track. Is it making a beeline for the Eastern Med? That's clue number one. Then, keep an eye on those flight trackers for its support planes. If you start seeing tanker aircraft and early warning planes flying these sustained patterns over one particular area, well, you can bet the carrier is operating right underneath them. We'll also likely see more of those P-8 spy planes, but this time they'll probably be buzzing around further east, near places like Crete or Cyprus.
Okay, and what about the signs that things are really heating up? What are the indicators of a possible escalation? You want to watch for a surge in activity from electronic warfare aircraft, specifically the EA-18G Growlers. Their job is to jam enemy radar. Also, look for a noticeable increase in the tempo of flights from all the regional air bases. And maybe the most critical one? Pay close attention to the news. A sudden increase in maritime incidents or harassment from Iranian forces, that could be a clear signal that tensions are about to boil over.
So, the USS Ford's arrival has placed a very, very powerful piece onto an already tense chessboard. Its presence completely changes the strategic math for every single player involved. Now, it doesn't force the next move, but it absolutely expands the playbook of options. The pieces are on the board. The question now is, what game is about to be played?